All right, so we are going to go ahead and get started. We're right on 12:30, and I'm going to try to stay on schedule as much as I can here, just because I will have to uh, go up and do some screening um, once I am done here. So we will get started with our presentation, or not our presentation, but our topic today for our WebEx. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you guys. And again, if you can mute your microphones, um, if you see that option there, just to make sure that there's as little distraction as possible, we will be set there. If you have any questions as we go along as well, feel free to type them in the chat box. I should be able to see that as well. So let me get this pulled up here to a full screen. Okay, so today's topic, and our kind of our first one to kick things off is so you're ready to lose some weight, but now what steps do you need to take to achieve that goal? So that's what we're going to discuss today. We're going to cover a few different things briefly, and really will delve and kind of dig into some more of these things as we go along. If there's any topics that I don't cover or anything you would like more information on as we go through, please let me know. Um, Again, if you send a chat, I should be able to see that at one point or another here. So we'll get started if it's going to let me click through this. So we're going to cover some of the basics here today with getting started with losing weight, and that's two main things are exercise and nutrition. So under exercise, we're going to look at what we should be doing, what kind of intensity should you exercise at, how much should I do during the week, and then how often should you perform it. And then nutrition, we're just going to touch very basic and briefly today because that's really going to be a topic we can break out into parts and get into more in depth as we move through this challenge. We're going to look at calories in versus calories out, and then a resting metabolic rate, also known as a basal metabolic rate. So those are things that we're going to look at today. Probably won't be a super long presentation. Again, if you have questions as we go through, please let me know. So moving into exercise types, there's different things you can perform, obviously, to accomplish exercise goals. For cardiovascular exercise, it's either categorized as aerobic exercise, which is lower intensity and longer duration, or anaerobic exercise, which is a higher intensity, shorter duration type of cardio. Things that fall under the aerobic exercise category is a brisk walk, a jog, running at a steady state, riding a bicycle, swimming, dancing, things like that. So things that you can perform for an extended period of time at a little bit lower of an intensity. So not something that's going to make you work crazy hard, but still going to get your heart pumping. Hi, Emily. Hi, Rochelle. Just write names down here so I don't miss anybody. And again, if you can mute your microphones, thank you. Anaerobic exercise are going to be things more like strength training, high intensity interval training, sprinting, plyometrics that involve some jumping and bounding. So activity that is higher intensity, you can't perform it for as long of a period of time, and it's going to elevate your heart rate faster and keep it at a higher level than what aerobic exercise would do. A combination of aerobic and anaerobic exercise is going to help you reach your goals faster. So it's good to mix and match. You don't want to do the same thing 5 days a week for the same amount of time at the same intensity. Eventually your body will adapt to that. It will conserve the energy that you have to burn because it knows that it's got to use it for an extended period of time. And it could slow down and kind of plateau your weight loss. So that's something that people commonly see is a hit a plateau. And that's when you know we got to change things up a little bit. So if you can change it up throughout the week with varying your intensities, the duration of your exercise, and the types of exercise you complete, you can maybe help to avoid some of those plateau pitfalls. Moving on to our next slide. We've got different ways to monitor exercise intensity. So that may be a question you have as well. Okay, well, it's great that I know I need to work hard. How hard is too hard? How hard is not enough? Where do I need to fall into to make sure I'm meeting my goals? So there's a few different ways to monitor exercise intensity. A talk test is one way you can do it. And this is the most basic of formats and methods with monitoring activity. If you can hold a steady conversation, you're probably working at a relatively moderate pace. Now you should feel like you are winded while you're doing this. So I would not be able to have the conversation I'm currently having while doing a moderate intensity level of exercise. If I was able to talk like this without taking any extra breaths or without missing a beat, I'm probably not working hard enough. If you're only able to get out a few words at a time, then you're working at a more vigorous activity level or vigorous intensity. So that's just a very basic way to kind of monitor what you can do.
Okay, so those people must be on.
So that's one way to look at that.
Unmute your system.
Another way, hey Kim, hey Steph. If you guys can mute your camera, that would be great.
Oh, yes.
Another way to monitor exercise.
Steph is. I'm trying to do the WebEx.
Heart rate.
For my weight control. Okay, so she will
wait just a second here until Kim's off. Oh, there she's got it. Okay. So heart rate is another way to monitor your exercise intensity. Moderate intensity is a 65 to 75% range of your max or estimated max heart rate, which again is kind of known as the fat burning zone. So that's where we definitely want to be in, and we don't want to try to stay in that range and not get too far below that range. Vigorous intensity is going to see you working at a higher range of 76% to 96% of your estimated max heart rate. So you're probably wondering, well, how the heck do I know what that is? We'll get to that in a second. Perceived effort is another way that you can do this. The RPE scale is one that's relatively common in the scale of 0 to 10, with 0 being in a resting state and 10 basically being that if you do anything more, you're going to drop over and not be able to continue. Moderate intensity typically falls in the 3 to 4 range, and vigorous intensity typically falls in the 6 to 7 range. So you don't want to be pushing way up into the 8, 9s, and 10s because, again, it's not sustainable. It's not always a healthy decision either. You can also use a variety of different activity trackers, Apple Watches, Fitbit, Garmin. Samsung has products that are available as well. So a lot of different things that you can use, and I am an Apple Watch user. Having an activity tracker or a smart device also makes it a lot easier to monitor your exercise via heart rate. So again, just a few different options that you have when looking at ways to monitor exercise intensity. This is an example on the screen here of what a workout looks like that I completed last week. That again shows kind of an average heart rate. The target heart rate for fat burning again is approximately 70% of your estimated max heart rate.
I think you can.
And there is an equation that you can use.
Thank you.
There is an equation that you can use to find that estimated max heart rate. So it's really simple. You just take 220 minus your current age, and that is your estimated max heart rate. Hey, Kim, you're still not muted. Can you mute your camera? I need to have a way to do self-mute too. But yeah, if you could find a way to mute your monitor, Kim, then that would be good. So again, using my age, 220 minus 31 is 189, so that would be 100% of my estimated max heart rate. And if I were to take that by 70%, that would look like 132 beats per minute. So with this workout that I have in here, I averaged 141 beats per minute. You can see how it elevates. It reduces in areas of rest, elevates again, slight reduce, elevates, reduces, and then elevates again to the finish. This was a 20-minute workout. And again, this is what I really like about the Apple Watch, is it shows you the active calories that you burn. So what you're burning while doing your exercise, along with the total calories that you had expended as well. So this 141 beats per minute is right around 75% for me. So I'm working towards the top of that moderate intensity level. It felt a lot harder than that. But again, there's times you can see it climbing up into the 170s. So this was a high intensity interval training workout. So one that kind of goes up and down. So it gives you a little bit of rest and then pushes you back to the top. So just an idea of what that looks like. And again, It's often common to think that you're working hard enough, and then you realize once you get a smart tracker with a Fitbit or an Apple Watch or whatever it may be, that you really are not working as hard as you thought you were. So it's really nice to have that option if it's available to you. If not, again, use some of the other methods that we talked about for monitoring your intensity. Sounds like the dog is here for staff members. Exercise frequency is another one that people tend to miss on. The ACSM, American College of Sports Medicine, recommends 150 to 300 minutes of moderate intensity exercise each week, or 75 to 150 minutes of vigorous intensity exercise each week. So the bottom line on this one really is that without adding exercise to your weekly routine, losing weight is going to be a lot more challenging because you're going to have to reduce the amount of calories you eat to meet a negative caloric deficit. So it's really, really hard to do if you're not adding any activity at all. So it's important to make sure that you're exercising. You want to spread it out throughout your week to get into a consistent routine as well. So, exercising for an hour a day, 3 days a week is not for everybody. But if you break that out into 30 to 45-minute workouts throughout your week, which is what I try to do with trying to hit 5 to 6 days a week, it makes it easier to fit those exercise minutes in. So you can go for 30 to 45 minutes at a time, and you can kind of plan it into your day to make sure you have time to be active. So for me, I exercise typically at home after our kids go to bed and we get the house picked up because that is the time I have available to me. So finding a spot that works on your calendar is also an important thing to get that built in. We'll move on to calories here next with a kind of really, really basic here with getting started on nutrition, and that's calories in versus calories out. This is not the only thing that matters with your nutrition. There are other factors that we'll touch on different days as well, but this is kind of the groundwork and where it starts as far as losing weight. And everyone probably understands this, but you do need to burn more calories than you consume to lose weight, and that again equals a negative caloric balance. So we want to have a negative caloric balance each day. So just as a basic example for a 2,000 calorie diet, if you consume 2,000 calories a day and burn 2,500 calories through your daily activity, that's a 500 calorie deficit. To lose approximately 1 pound per week, a calorie deficit of 500 to 1,000 calories a day is necessary. So you're probably wondering, well, how the heck am I going to do that? I can't eat 1,000 less calories a day than I am right now. That's not what we want you to do. This is achieved through a combination of reducing consumed calories and exercise. So you're not going to just do one and make it. So again, what you eat matters. Negative caloric balance while still eating a high carb, high fat, low nutrient dense food will not lead to the results that you're looking for. But again, this is something that we'll touch on at a later date. Right now, we're just focusing on the calories in versus calories out. So how can you burn that many calories in one day? You may be asking yourself. This is where the basal metabolic rate or your resting metabolic rate comes into play. This is a rate at which your body burns calories when you're at rest. So no matter what you're doing during the day, even if you're just sitting at your desk, you're still burning calories. This is calculated based on your sex, height, weight, and age. And there are tons of online calculators that you can use to determine your estimated BMR. I have a link in here to one that we're going to go to. So we'll see if it's going to let me share this screen with you guys as well. We'll pick a new one. Where is the one that I want? Right here. So this is just a link to a website called active.com. And I don't know if you guys can see this right now or not. Hopefully you can. But this is a BMR calculator. Again, you pick your gender. And then I'll use myself as an example. I'm 6 feet 4 inches tall. I weigh 225 pounds and I'm 41 years old. You calculate this and it shows your basal metabolic rate. So my basal metabolic rate is 2,223 calories. So those are the calories that I burn when I'm at rest. So that's just an example of how that works. We'll move back to our find it here. Where did that go? Right here. And then Kim, can you mute your computer, Kim? We're still getting some background sound from you. Let's see. And sent me a screenshot here on how to mute. So let's see here if I can open this into a bigger form here. So down at the bottom, Kim, right below where it shows what we're looking at, there should be an area that you can choose to mute.
I know.
Now I'm lost here. Where's my stuff? Okay. Kim, were you able to find that? There we go. Okay. So let's go back to my screen sharing here. If I can find it. Now I've got all this stuff goofed up. Oh, come on. There it is. Okay, so back to my PowerPoint. Okay, so again, that is how you can find and calculate your basal metabolic rate. And you guys will get a copy. I'll send out a copy of this as well so you can use this link. But combining the amount of calories that you burn just at rest, again with exercise, is going to be the best way to meet that negative caloric balance each day. So the more active you are, the more calories you're going to burn. Higher intensity equals a higher caloric output. Longer workouts aren't always better. So, for example, if I were to run at a steady state on a treadmill for 60 minutes, I probably would burn about the same amount of calories as if I were to do a high intensity interval training session for about 30 minutes. So just because you're working out longer doesn't always equal better. Because if you don't have that much time, you've got to find ways to burn more calories in a shorter amount of time. EPOC is also bonus calorie expenditure. We're going to touch on that in just a second. And reducing daily caloric intake plus exercise is the best method. So this is where tracking comes into play. If you haven't been tracking your food, you're not going to know how much you've been taking in and how much you've been putting out with exercise. So making sure that you use an app like MyFitnessPal or even Health Check 360, they'll give you a recommended daily intake to either maintain or lose weight depending on your goal, and then you have that as well. So there are different ways to determine that, and then again, combining exercise with nutrition on top of your resting metabolic rate is going to be your best key to success as far as losing weight is concerned. EPOC stands for excess post-exercise oxygen consumption, so it's kind of a mouthful. But high intensity exercise can increase the amount of time and energy it takes your body to replenish your oxygen deficit from exercise, and it can result in more calories being burned for up to 24 hours post-workout. So this chart just kind of shows the difference between what moderate intensity exercise and high intensity interval training looks like. Exercise time with HIIT is shorter, but because you're working harder, you're breathing harder, so your oxygen debt is increased, and then it takes longer to return back to your baseline for oxygen consumption. So moderate intensity exercise, you're working at a challenging pace, but not enough to put you into a big oxygen debt like you are with HIIT. And you can definitely feel the difference between these two if you do these two different kinds of workouts. And you recover much faster from a moderate intensity exercise than you do from a high intensity exercise. Now, HIIT and those kinds of formats are not one that you want to do 3, 4, 5 days a week. You can do, a couple a week at most, especially getting started. I wouldn't recommend doing more than one because it is a format where you're trying to work as hard as you possibly can during the workout. So It's not necessarily, I wouldn't call it unsafe, but if you're just getting started with exercise, it's going to be really challenging and could be really discouraging if you can't finish a workout. Um, for myself personally, I try to perform one HIIT workout and one longer kind of steady state cardio workout a week just because that works for me. I'll maybe be adding in a second one just to get a little bit more cardiovascular, which is something I'm not crazy about with getting on treadmills and things like that, but I know I need to do it. So um, I prefer the shorter duration, higher intensity workouts, but it can be tougher on your body. So just something to keep in mind. So just to recap today's session, with exercise, of course, what you do matters. So you want to monitor your intensity. You want to perform different types of exercise. So aerobic versus anaerobic. Again, that's your steady state cardio versus more higher intensity cardio that gets you working a little harder in a shorter amount of time. That ACSM recommendation, again, is 150 to 300 minutes of moderate exercise each week. And then again, we're really basic with nutrition. We want to focus or at least start with calories in versus calories out. So you're looking at a 500 to 1,000 calorie deficit each day to lose a pound per week. The kind of guideline and recommendation has always been if you have a negative caloric balance of 3,500 calories at the end of 1 week, that's equivalent to a pound of fat. Now that can vary person to person, and that's something I need to look into a little bit more. But that's kind of where we start at with a daily calorie deficit. You want to achieve that deficit through a combination of reducing caloric intake and exercise. So you don't want to cut all of your calories out. If you're eating 2,000 calories a day, you can't just cut 1,000 calories out of your day because it's not safe. The minimum amount of calories you should be consuming, the very minimum would be 1,200, but being closer to that 1,400 calorie range is a safer bet. And then what you eat, not just how much, matters as well. So you could be meeting your calorie goal every day, but going way over in macronutrients with fat and carbs and sugar and sodium and all those things, which again, MyFitnessPal is great for that because it keeps track of all those things throughout the day. So again, what you eat, not just how much matters. And that's something that we'll get into a little later on. So again, that was just a very brief rundown of how you can kind of modify and work in your exercise routine and make some changes and see how things work that way. And a very basic start to nutrition with the calories in versus calories out comparison. Kind of check that out on your MyFitnessPal if you've been tracking that way, and hopefully you have, because without tracking, you're not going to see a lot of success. And look at how many days you meet your calorie goal. And on days that you meet your calorie goal, are you meeting your carbohydrate goal? Are you meeting your protein goal? Are you meeting your fat goal? Because again, you can meet your calories but be over on carbs, and you may not see those results, even though you have a calorie deficit at the end of each day. So that is everything that I've got for you guys today. Again, I will get this sent out to everyone so that you can have it if you want to make any notes or if you want to have it kind of to follow along as we go. And then there will be that link that's included in here as well if you're curious as to what your resting metabolic rate or basal metabolic rate is. So with that, if you guys have any questions, please feel free to shoot me.
Hey, Dennis, how are you? Good.
Here
All right.
throughout
I'll
the
let you know you're
afternoon.
here, okay?
I won't be in my office, but if you email me, I am available. So hope everybody has a great rest of the day. And if you haven't gotten your weights to me yet this week, make sure, because I'm not able to be down here to get them the rest of the way, send me an email with a weight, a picture of a scale or the number that you've got. I will be in touch with everyone again next week. Have a great rest of the day.
This is weird.
Mhm. Joe.